Hi, everybody. It's me, Tony, and Jen and Benny. I never get the pointing right, so that's it. We are going to be talking to you today about rural communities and mental health, as is written right up here. Before I get everybody to introduce themselves, I'm going to ask you guys a question to kind of get things started here. Benny said they specifically wanted a question, and I don't know what it is, so I don't. I'm gonna say, if you could be any ocean living creature, what would it be and why?
All right, that's not the one.
That's not the one, so you get to go first now.
God damn it. All right. Well, I'm pretty sure you've heard my response to this answer before, but it's the same answer. So it's a bone-eating snot-flower worm.
What? Oh yeah. Wait, you did. I do remember this.
Yeah. It like say like a whale dies and then the carcass falls to the ocean floor. All the animals like eat everything, and then this little tiny like 2 millimeter worm goes and like inside the bones and eats all the nutrients that's left. It's such a weird little
It's perfect.
tiny. Yeah.
It's perfect. Great. So there you go. So Jen, how are you gonna follow that one
up? I'm just gonna go with the very traditional dolphin.
Dolphin.
Everyone likes dolphins, right?
Yeah, I guess that's true. I'm gonna say mine's a sea urchin, because they're all like prickly on the outside, but if you flip them over, they're all gooey on the inside. And so I don't know. That's what we're gonna go with. That's what I'm gonna go with. So my name's Tony. For all of you tuning in, I'm the outreach coordinator at AMI-Quebec, and we do these like events, these Facebook Live events, to talk about topics. You can ask questions. Just do so in the comments. Leave a question in the comments, and we'll answer them live. We're going to be talking about rural communities and mental health. I'm going to mess up rural all the time tonight. Just so you know, I'm going to say it. I'm going to stutter through it and everything. That's just how it's going to be. We have Jen from Mental Health History, and then Benny. I'm going to have Jen introduce himself first, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. Hey, everyone. It's good to be with you guys. And I'm totally going to mess up rural as well. Can't pronounce it very well. So bear with me, guys. So my name is Jennifer. Everyone calls me Jen. And I'm the intervener and administrative assistant at Mental Health History. So we're a nonprofit community organization located in the Eastern Townships. And we serve the English-speaking community. We offer support, information, help for individuals, families, friends that are living or experiencing mental illness. So again, in the Eastern Township area.
Perfect. So Benny, who are you and what are you bringing to this conversation?
I'm Benny, and I'm bringing a lot of lived experience, mostly just that, because I'm not a professional. Okay. But I do suffer from a plethora of things, such as, bipolar type 2, borderline, anxiety, and depression. Okay. And I live like an hour east of Quebec City, so in like the Chaudière-Appalaches region.
Okay.
And I've lived here for 2 or 3 years now. I can't, like, COVID kind of messed with my time.
Time is not real right now. Yeah. Time is fake right now. It's just all mumbled together. All right, so we're just going to jump right into this. Some of the realities. So when we're talking about rural communities, things are different. It's different than living in the city. I am currently living in Montreal. I live in NDG. I am basically 30 minutes from anything I could ever possibly want. And that is very different than someone who lives near like where Benny lives or where you live, Jen. And like in the S3 region, like services are not the same. So how can this like lack of services affect people's mental health? Like, not only in terms of just being able to get help, but how does it affect how you feel? There's two sides of that, right? Is like, okay, there's this thing and I need it, but I can't get to it easily. And then there's let's talk about that part of it first, of the like that reality. How does that affect people's mental health? Like, what do you think? Jen, you go first, because you guys. So Mental Health is 3 offers services. You guide people to things that are around.
Yes.
So what kind of calls? Like, how are people relating to you guys in this scenario?
Well, I think one of the biggest things, and it's probably been exacerbated or like increased because of the pandemic, is just feeling incredibly isolated and just very alone and not feeling heard or connected and not knowing what the services are and where to connect. So when people call to us, it's often, I don't even know where to really begin.
Yeah.
So I'm just calling to see what's available. Is it even available? Is it in English or not?
Yeah.
How far do I have to go to get there? So it's often just feeling incredibly isolated and not quite sure what the next steps are.
Okay. So, Benny, do you have any like real life like experiences with this sort of thing? Like, do you have any like wisdom or insight about what it's like being like living out? I'm gonna say in the middle of nowhere every time, but I realize that really like it also belittles people's experiences of like where they live, because it's not in the middle of nowhere. There are things around you. There are like these things. You're not in like this vast nothingness, but it is different. So I'm gonna keep saying that, but I don't want to like trivialize people's experiences and so yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I lived in Montreal before too, and like, so I know how diverse the resources there can be, and I really took for granted before moving out here. Because since then, like trying to get support out here has been extremely hard, and like the people, like Jen was saying, is I was that person. I called and I was like, I don't even know where to start. Like, I don't like. In Montreal, you can just Google things and there's resources specific to what you're dealing with. Whereas like out here, it's more like a catch-all. So like there's one resource, at least out here where I am, that you call and they kind of like divert you to somewhere else. And oftentimes for mental health, it was just the CLSC. The CLSC is the only thing out here. And I did that. And I'm sure people know that the CLSC is like not always the greatest. It's kind of, you got to deal with the cards that you're dealt with, whoever the worker is available. And I know that they're also like super overworked, so I'm not like trying to blame them or anything, but it's just that there's just a lack of resources. And like I hear too, like from a lot of parents trying to like support their children, even in the city, even with all the resources in the city, I can imagine like how much harder it is too in the country, being like a parent trying to get help for like your kid, and then just like navigating the system with like way less resources is just like it's hard. It's really hard. I'm gonna try not to swear.
Yeah,
I swear a lot, but I'm gonna try not to.
just to kind of like let you know, I also have a hard time with swearing, so it's all good. I was doing a workshop last Saturday, and in my like closing remarks, I dropped an F-bomb, and everyone's eyes went. And my coworker who was in the workshop with me was just like, oh. So we'll roll with it. We'll just roll with it. One thing that you brought up that I kind of want to dig into this a little bit is that the CLSC is the catch-all. Right, so if someone's having a mental health issue, crisis or just maintenance, like trying to keep a baseline on their mental health. So there's two parts of this that I wonder, and maybe you guys have some insight. Is one side of it is, does that mean that people just ignore their mental health issues and nobody talks about it, and there's this stigma around needing help? And so no one says anything, does anything, even more so than maybe where more resources are available. And then the other side of that is, does that mean there's people who are practicing privately, or is there just nowhere for them to practice? There's not enough people close by. How does so these are the two sides of things, like, because even in the city, you know, there is a delay. They'll send you to the CLSC, you have to go, and to get to see a psychiatrist, you have to get on a wait list. It could take years to get on to see somebody. I can only imagine that's exacerbated in the city, in the country, out in, you know, outside of where there's more people. So like those are two things that I wonder, like, okay, I have to wait for the system, but I can just go pay in the private sector and like take care of myself. But is that even a possibility in the outside of the city, essentially? Jen, you first.
Yeah, no, it's like great questions and things that come up all the time. And Benny, I wanted to kind of also tag on to what you were saying. Like often what ends up happening too is people get the runaround. You know, they call one service, they get bounced to another service, and so on and so forth. And I think it happens more often for the English-speaking community as well, because they'll call one and say, hey, I'm sorry, we don't have any interveners that are bilingual. And it's not that organizations aren't trying, it's just unfortunately limited resources. So, and that is very, very, very discouraging. And I think you make a really good point that people do end up being referred back to the CLSC or even to the hospital if it's an emergency situation. And there is this thing, I know in the Eastern Townships, I don't know if it's like this everywhere, but for English speakers that do reach out and ask for help, and that's something that's incredibly difficult no matter who you are, and they are stuck on long waiting lists, there isn't anyone that is bilingual to serve them, maybe they have a really bad negative experience, they get discouraged and then they turn away. And the issue is that they don't come back and ask for help again. I think that's one of the biggest things that's happening now with the Anglophone population or English-speaking population is they've tried once, twice, it didn't work, I'm not going to try again. And so they find themselves even more isolated. And that reinforces the stigma, Tony, that you were talking about. And it's just like this vicious cycle. And so at MHE, part of what we try and do is say, hey, we exist, we're out here, reach out to us. Let us know what your needs are and let us do the work for you to kind of find these resources, make these connections. And sometimes we have to look in the private sector. The issue with that, there's a cost. And the issue with the pandemic is now the wait lists in the private sector are also getting longer and longer as well. So there's a lot of this like negative kind of spinning cycle, and it's never ending. The one thing I do want to mention, because I am saying a lot of, you know, the bad stuff that's going on, there are still positive experiences. Yeah. And the one thing I would encourage everyone, because I really want to reinforce this, is keep knocking on doors and keep asking, because at some point you'll land on someone like someone at MHE that will say, okay, let's just figure this out and see what we can make happen for you. So that's just on the positive side of things. I really want to reinforce that.
Absolutely. And I think that it's important to make sure that even though we'll talk about some of the negative things, we are definitely going to be talking about the positive things, because there's two sides to every coin. I just want to make sure that everyone who's watching is aware of that. Benny, do you have any insight on those two, like the two sides of that, like resources being harder to get, and so do people ignore it, and all of that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, like that I had gone to the CLSC before, and they only speak French, and so I'm Anglophone, and I took a lot of French courses in French immersion, so I'm fluent, but it's so different living in an environment where it's like constant French all the time, and it's fast paced, and you're trying to keep up while having like a hard time mentally. It's just like, it's a lot. And I tried to do therapy with like a woman at the CLSC in French, because that's all that was offered, and it just didn't work out just because of the language barrier. And they're like, I don't know of any services in English out here, even private. Like I've tried to look up online like private services, and it's all French, and I've asked and I've called, and they don't have anything, and it's also extremely expensive and so many less options. So, and also something that I noticed in the city is that a lot of times they offer more sliding scales. So like it depends on your income, and if you have a lower income, they have spots that you can pay slightly less than their regular rate. Whereas out here is, I asked that because I wasn't working before and I was having trouble with money, and they just didn't know what I was talking about.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was really hard. But yeah.
So we got
Go ahead.
A couple comments and a comment and a question here. So Perla just is just, this is like the reality that people are facing, right? Is that you know, Perla's saying that last month they had to drive her daughter from the Laurentians to the Douglas, so that's like an hour and a half if there's no traffic. Instead of the local hospitals. And so online access has been easier, and maybe it will continue. And so that's something that I think that we can really, like, I personally, I think I'm going to push a lot, is that if you're looking for therapy services, there are, especially with the pandemic now, there are a lot of people offering online services that are offering it in English and in French, and also offering sliding scale. All of these things that are like, that were not accessible before are accessible. Now, I'm not going to lie and sit here and tell you that it's perfect. I personally, like, I tried to do therapy through the screen. It doesn't work the same way for me. Like, I don't have that same kind of connection. But if you don't have anything, maybe it's better than nothing. You know, this is something that I think is one of the, like, silver linings of the pandemic, is that so many places and so many things have realized that they have to offer this online or this non-in-person option for things. And so that exists. I have another question here, and this is kind of answering that a little bit. Jamie's saying that their therapist is, they're ending their relationship with their therapist, and they have to go to the CLSC, and then with BPD, that doesn't work with going from one place to another and being bounced around a lot. And so they're asking for if there's any other way to get therapy other than the CLSC. I don't have the answer to that. If you want to call Mental Health History, I bet you they can help guide you a little bit. This is also something that we may not necessarily, unless Jen, you have some resources that you can think of off the top of your head. I tend to refer people to call and to come to give us a call or send us an email, because then we can get these things all into like one nice little package. Because this is live, so it's easy for me to be like, oh, just call this thing. Oh, by the way, that thing closed 3 weeks ago because of the pandemic, and so their workers are not working right now. So this is where we have the most up-to-date information on the phone.
Absolutely. No, I agree with that. I think it's, I would really encourage anyone to just really call and have a conversation, because you get to know their story, what they really need and what they're really looking for as well. And then you can then see what services are available. And then from there, try and make that connection, or have the person try and connect. So yeah, I think calling would be really amazing. So if anyone wants to do so, obviously we're here.
So we started on like some of the negative things, right? Which is the hard part of getting services and stuff like that. So let's talk about some of the positive things. So what are some of the good things, the beneficial things about living in a rural community that maybe someone who lives in the city may not realize is beneficial for their mental health? I know that right now, the government, everybody's pushing, go for a walk. Like, that's going to cure all your problems. It's more than that. But when you're living in the country, that's like, you're on a walk all the time, right? So, like, is that one of, like, the pros? Like, do you guys have any opinions on this or any insight?
I do.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I absolutely hated when I was a teenager and like going to different therapists and doctors for like to figure out my mental health stuff. I hated when they said like, just go for a walk, go for a run, exercise. I was like, I'm too depressed to move my body. Like, stop telling me this. Like, give me something else. But I am at a place now where I have had years of therapy, and I have skills to like deal with my brain stuff. And so I am at a point where I can like exercise, and having social anxiety and living in the city and going outside and exercising, I hate it so much. Like I absolutely hate it. I'm so self-conscious. I'm like
Yeah.
worried. There's people everywhere. There's like cars, bikes everywhere. I find it so overwhelming, and that stopped me from exercising and moving my body, and it made me feel worse, and I would just hide inside.
Yeah.
And so like being out in the country, like I can step outside and there's no one there, and it's such a relief. And like even recently, like it took me 2 years to like start more exercising outside. Like we have a basement, so I would exercise in the basement, and like now I go outside. It takes like a little while, but I'm finally doing it. I was
That's
just like
good.
before this even, I like go outside and I'm getting into like jumping ropes, and I'm like was jumping rope outside, and I feel really good. And
Yeah,
you
because
can,
no
like,
one's gonna be like.
there's
a
no
creep
one
about
around
it.
there. Yeah, yeah,
Perfect.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have people honking at you.
Yeah. So Jen, what are some of like the pros of like being out there?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of pros. Of
There's
being in the
obviously a
country.
ton.
I'm totally biased because I also grew up in the country too, and that's what I know.
Okay.
I remember when I was a kid growing up, we had a house and we actually had a yard, like a yard where you can go and run and grow a garden and play and kick a ball around, and you have this space. Like there's just more space. You get to be maybe outdoors a little bit more, enjoy kind of more the fresher air, which is always really nice too. And I think, Benny, you were kind of alluding to that as well. In the city, we're like very, very crowded, and maybe also the lifestyle is a lot more fast-paced, more stressful, versus in the country. Yes, there's still that, but it's different. It's a slower lifestyle. The stress is less, or I guess I would say different.
It's different stresses, yeah.
Different stresses. And I think when you go out in the city, you know your neighbors. So you kind of wave at someone, you have a small chit chat. So you're kind of creating these connections, these social connections.
Yeah.
Versus in the city, I find that we're often kind of just our heads down and just trying to get to where we want to go. Again, I'm not a city person, so I'm totally being like naive maybe here, but I find that in the country, you can just kind of connect easily with your neighbors and have more of that friendly kind of atmosphere, which is great for your mental health. Especially in the pandemic, we need those little human moments.
Yeah. Definitely. It's funny because all these things you're saying, I've recently been able to garden in my front yard. I live in like a building, and so we were given the front yard to start to maintain. And there's garden beds,
Awesome.
and so like I've been able to grow flowers and herbs and stuff like that, and it has just like completely changed my feelings on like where I live. Like across the street there's a paint place, there's like a roofing company a block away, and there's Saint Jacques with like people 4 lanes of traffic all the time, but I can go and put my head down, but I've got like my little green space. And so like it's interesting because I'm a city kid through and through. I love going out into the country. I love getting dirty. I love going in the woods. I like sleeping in the woods. I like having fires. I like riding in trucks in the mud. I like going fishing. I like going hunting. I like shooting guns. I like doing all these things that people love to do in the country for a short amount of time. I can't do it all the time. And so like these are things that like it's interesting, like these. So there you go. I just listed like a million things that are pros about being in the country that you just don't get from living in the city, right? Like it's a different type of community, and so that's something I want to like talk about. You talked about like knowing your neighbors, and like I've been living in Montreal for about 16 years, 17 years now, and so like I can go somewhere in the city, and chances are I'm gonna run into somebody I know. That's just I'm a social person. I'm loud. And so like I know people all over different things, all over different areas of the city. And so how do you build that community aside from just like your neighbor who may live a half a mile from you, or your neighbor who may live 10 miles from you, or kilometers, I guess, may live 500 meters from you and may live 5 kilometers from you. But like, so people are more spread out. So how do you build that community where you're like, you don't, or do you just have to have more closer ties and less acquaintances? Like, what's the difference?
I feel like you can't be picky. I feel like you just can't be picky. You know, you got like 2 neighbors. You gotta make it work.
Yeah, you gotta make it work, right? Like small squabbles gotta get pushed to the side. That's a different.
Yeah, but it's taught me so much patience in dealing with people and situations that make me uncomfortable, that I have to actually work through these things instead of in the city where you can just walk away from those things and then like not deal with it. That I feel like my conflict resolution skills are like slowly but surely getting better, like socially, because it's like, well, oh shit, sorry, like you said something like that makes me really uncomfortable, but you're my neighbor. I can't, you know, like, all right, like what? Let's talk about it.
Talk
you know,
about it.
like
It's about finding that common ground. Even though you may disagree about something, there's somewhere where you're going to be able to like meet. Usually, obviously, there's going to be exceptions to that, I think. But Jen, what about you? What are you like for building community and stuff like that?
I think, you know, Benny kind of hit on something where you kind of have to step outside of your comfort zone and really go and build that connection. You know, you have to walk or drive, you know, that mile to your neighbor and maybe drop off a fresh loaf of bread or something to, you know, and have a chat. It's really making the effort of connecting with people and often working together too. I mean, I've noticed obviously in the area here, especially like we try as much as possible to have a lot of activities organized where everyone is invited, you know, the local markets, which I know you guys have in the city as well, but it's like when everyone in those moments on Saturday morning comes at the market and it's like a big reunion and everyone just sits and chats. And so it's really about like having these events and really kind of coming together as a community, but also making that effort to kind of go to those things and put yourself out there, right? Or else it's very easy to get lost in your little bubble in the country, right? And that can be really devastating for your mental health. So it's really making that effort to connect with people. And it takes work and it's not always easy and it doesn't come natural to everyone. I'm an introvert. I'm not the best at social skills. I need to really work at it. So I totally get it, you know? So
it's interesting because I worked for a place for one of my first jobs in Montreal. And in fact, it may have been my first actual job in Montreal. I was working for the People's Potato, which is a soup kitchen at Concordia University, and we would take our compost. They don't do that now because now there's like local composting, but this is, you know, 17 years ago, there was no like composting happening in the city. You had to take it somewhere if you wanted to compost, especially at the quantities that we were producing. And so we were taking our compost every week out to St. Valentin. It's like a very little town, and we were taking it to a farm. And so that was like my favorite thing to do. Because I'd just moved to Quebec, and I was like, getting out in the country, perfect. I don't know anything about Quebec. Let's see all of it. And so I was all about it. I'm still all about it. And one of my favorite things that I noticed that St. Valentin did is that on Valentine's Day, the entire little town, everybody would go all out on Valentine's Day decorations. Hearts and red and white. And they would have a Valentine's night spaghetti dinner. And everybody within 50 kilometers was at that Valentine's spaghetti dinner, and everybody was having a good time. There was like dancing and just like, it was like, that's the difference in terms of like how people are building community, I think, out in the country, is that you have these big events that you have to go to because what else are you going to do for the next month? Nothing. And in February at that, right? Like it's the heart of winter. And so you got this nice warm spaghetti dinner, everyone's going to be there. And so like that's the beauty of like the different type of community, I think, that gets established in the country. So we're just to bring on pros and stuff like that. So I'm going to talk a bit about some of the harder things to get to. We talked about access to services. What about like transportation? How does that work? Like, what if you don't have a car? Are you kind of like you're up the creek without a paddle? Is that like the reality of living in the country? Yeah. It's like, all right.
100%.
100%. All right. Especially in Quebec in the winter, you're not going to be like in the city. You can ride your bike, and you're like, oh, if you get really really cold, you could go inside somewhere for 10 minutes to warm up. But if somewhere on your bicycle is an hour away by bicycle, that's not necessarily the safest thing to do when it's -30 outside or -20 and the wind blowing snow. It's a different kind of commuting. You can get on a snowmobile, I guess.
Yep.
No, it's really tough, and in certain areas where you live in the townships, you really do need a car, even to just go and get groceries, to go to the post office. There are other areas that do have more of the public transportation, but I was talking to someone the other day, and they were saying it's great that we have it, but it's not always reliable. It's not always there when we need it, right? So it's good, but I think there's definitely some challenges there too. And so if you don't have a car, or you don't have someone to drive you, or you're not within walking distance, you're missing out on a lot of opportunities, or in services that are already limited. So it's definitely a huge barrier, especially the more rural that you are, the more further away you are from any type of town or anything.
So how does that affect kids? How are kids in rural communities? How's their mental? I think that social, a big part of being a kid is socializing. That's how you go to school, and is that really the only the biggest avenue for socialization for kids is school, I guess then, right? Because once you leave school and you go back home, you might not see your friends again for a few days. If it's Friday, if it's a long weekend, it's 5 days. What about the summer? So I guess you just have to rely on your parents to get you around, or I guess that's just the different reality out there, huh? All right.
Yeah, it's tougher. Yeah. I mean, I'll give you guys an example, just more of a personal one. I'll throw my partner under the bus here a little bit. But he grew up very much in the country and very much on a farm. And yes, school was the place, I think, where all of us would use our social time, or if we had recreational activities or leagues or things like that. And I remember when he wanted to hang out with his friends and his parents couldn't bring him, he'd hop on his bike, didn't matter how old he was, and he'd bike for a few hours just to go and hang out with his friends, and then back a few hours back to come back. You kind of make the best that you can with what you have, but it is more challenging to connect. I think you mentioned earlier, Tony, something that's really important. That's both a pro and a con in some ways, is technology. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, technology's been allowing us to stay even more connected. And I think that's been a really positive thing in a lot of different ways. I think the downside, if we're talking about more countryside, is that not all areas have access to the internet.
Yeah.
Or if they do, the connection's not very good. And so some people or some individuals don't even have, don't want to use technology. So it's hard to connect, right? So I think technologies has helped a lot of the youth stay connected in many, many ways.
Okay. So how, I'm trying to think of I guess this all comes back to isolation, right? All these things are tied into being isolated. And so how, I can't remember if we talked about this or not, how does isolation affect our mental health in how can how does that work? How is that helping or hurting people in some ways? I know you both said earlier, we're both introverts, so we we don't want to see people, it's okay. But you still like to see people, just on your terms. And this is me speaking as an extrovert of how I understand introverts to be. So how is that isolation affecting people? How, aside from the very tangible things, you can't get somewhere, and internet is spotty sometimes, and food is harder to get to because you have to go to the grocery store and it's not necessarily walking distance. So how is that affecting people on the day-to-day, or in the long term even? Benny, you go first.
Sure. Well, honestly, it's pushed me to find resources for myself that make more sense, because I don't have the resources in front of me out here. And so I do everything online. It pushes me to contact my friends virtually. I have like my therapist, which I do by phone, and she lives in Toronto, and so now I have a therapist that speaks English that is way better than me trying to talk about my feelings in French.
Yeah.
But the isolation is super real, especially with COVID. It's like, like even before COVID, like me socializing would be going to Montreal or going to Ottawa to see my family. But now that's not an option where I still like, I've been here 2 or 3 years now and I still don't have like a community because it's really hard to meet people. It's really hard to find people that want to meet new people. And so yeah, I don't know. The isolation is super real. I don't know. I don't have any like super positive things. It's just really hard.
But that's the reality. That's what we're talking about, right? Is like that it doesn't always have to be easy. I have a good question coming in, but I want to hear Jen's input about this.
Well, I think as human beings, whether we're introvert or extrovert, we're social beings, right? And so, isolated for a certain period of time, there's positives and negatives, but the more of a negative impact it does have on your overall well-being and your mental health. It could lead to more severe things like depression, like anxieties, like, you can, again, really cycle yourself down. And again, it's not healthy for yourself physically or mentally. So I think, Benny, in what you were saying, is just you really need to make an effort to try and reach out. And I think sometimes that's hard. So if we can maybe lean on people like friends or family and say, hey, I'm feeling this way, I'm not sure what to do. Maybe they can reach out on your behalf and be that bridge or that connection and kind of get the ball rolling for you. So sometimes it's, in communities, in rural areas, everyone knows everyone, which is a good thing and a bad thing sometimes, but it means you can also lean on people. And sometimes people will say, hey, look, I'm noticing you're struggling. Do you need help? Can I be there for you? So it's a reality. Isolation is absolutely a reality, and it's really hard to break that isolation unless you really reach out and ask for help or someone helps you, along the way to get that help.
One thing that Benny brought up that I think is really important I stress this all the time with other people too, is that it's really hard to make friends as an adult. It's just like, it's very different when you're in school, you're in a forced place with people all of the hours of the day. When you work, you're with those people all the time. And so the further you move away from the city, those bubbles get smaller, right? So your work community, unless you're like traveling into like a big center, like a warehouse where there's all these people working, you might be working with 3 people for the next 12 years, and those will be the same 3 people that you're gonna see every day for the next 12 years. And so like, what happens when you don't get along with them? Like, there's your bubble of like of isolation, right? And that gets harder when you get further out into the country. So I think that's just, I just wanted to like, I don't know, commiserate with you, I guess, and be like, yes, it's a real thing. That like, making friends is super hard. Even in the city, like I find it really hard to make new friends in the city, like as an adult and in my late 30s. Like everyone, they're like, they've got their friends and they're like, I've got my friends. I don't need new friends. Like, and so people who lived out in the country their whole lives and didn't move out there recently, that's, they know who they're going to hang out with because they've been hanging out with them since they were 7. And like their uncles hung out with each other, and like this is like, it's like it's like a cycle, right? So I have a question here. What moments make that isolation worth it for you? And I think this is a fantastic question. I'm interested in hearing what both of you say.
Oh, yeah, I should think about that one.
Yeah, it's a hard one. So like, what kind of like, when you're isolated, what makes it be like, this is worth it? I'm glad I'm out here, and this is good. Do you guys have any like specific things? You both live in the country. I can't say that because I don't live out in the country, so I can't really. I can't throw something without hitting somebody. So.
Well, I know that. Where I live currently, I have the mountain and I have the lake. Okay. And I know if I was in the city, I wouldn't necessarily have that. So it's just like that wow, like I get to have this and appreciate this and be like that nature piece, which I absolutely adore. And I think when you're more isolated, you are more grateful in some ways. Like you don't take so many things for granted
Yeah.
because you're kind of just really appreciating every single little thing that you do have that's around you, including the people that you have around you, because maybe your network is a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
So the family that you live with, and kind of just those moments, and you kind of create that really tight knit kind of connection with the people that are the closest to you.
Yeah.
So that's what immediately comes to mind. But that's
it.
a really amazing question.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. How
Yeah,
about you, Benny?
that's a really good point. Yeah, it's a really good point about like you have more time and like the lifestyle's a lot slower. So that can be a hard adjustment if you're coming from the city. But I do find that like Jen said, it makes you more grateful for the moments that you have, and like also just like making more time for like what do you really want to do? What do you want to be doing with your time instead of in the city where it's kind of like a buzz all the time, and like that's really fun and like I love that too, but like it's nice to feel more focused and more like, okay, what do I really want to be spending like with my time? And also like at lunch I like drive, there's a lake like 5 minutes away that I can like go fishing on my lunch break or go canoeing. like it's just mind blowing to me, and I love it. I love it so much. Also, just like neighbors.
Yeah.
Like I live on a farm, and my partner is an employee there, and so like our neighbor is the farmer and the farmer's dad and the farmer's like aunt, and so like there's all the kids there too, and so I call them like my farm family because like they're my second family out here, and it's like it's such a nice connection. And if I want to go like play with the 5-year-old, it's like I never had that. Well, that's not true. I also had that in the city, but it's really nice to like do like country stuff with kids.
Do country stuff with kids. It's funny because we're talking about like you guys are talking about how it's just like minutes away to be able to get to like a mountain or a lake, and then we have a comment like this who someone in the city who's like, can I come tent on your property? And this is like because this is the reality of people that live in the city, right? Is like, and so this is something that I wanted to talk about. Here we go. This is exactly what I want to talk about. So Tina saying, now I want to move to the country. And so I brought this up in our like pre-show up briefing thing here. There's like in the late 90s, there was this like mass white flight exodus from the city. Get away from all the people of color. They're dangerous. We got to get away, get out, get into the suburbs, get into the city country, all that stuff. And then in the like late 90s, early 2000s, it was like, oh no, everybody come back into the city. We all want to be close. We want to be in everything. We want to gentrify these neighborhoods. We want to do all these things. And now after the pandemic in the past year, you hear it all over the news. People from the city are going, oh, I'm telecommuting. I'm working from home. I'm leaving. And they all flee to the country. So what's that like? What's that like? I want to talk about that reality of like that maybe things that like we've talked about a lot of the things that people may not have realized might be different if they move to the country. Like, yes, you're going to get these green spaces, but you're not going to have Thai food that isn't Thai Express. Right? Like, you're not going to have Italian food that isn't Subway sandwiches or like the Gaetan spaghetti joint. Yeah, there's delivery, but is there delivery out in the country? Like, there's no delivery. Like, you have to make all your meals. That's oh man, if there's anything that the pandemic has taught me is that I love cooking and I hate making meals for myself 3 times a day. Oh my God, is it so much work? So this is something that the pandemic taught me. So like, do you guys have any like insight about this, about these people who are like ready to like pack their bags and leave the city because they're like want to live in the country because for now they're able to work from home?
Benny, did you want to? Well, Benny, because I know maybe you made that move, so I was wondering maybe you had more insight than I did on this.
Honestly, like, I think over the years, like, I first started like city in the winter and then country in the summer, and then slowly, like, eventually just like made the move out into the country.
Yeah.
But I got to do that first little transition with some friends who have like a bed and breakfast out in the country.
Oh, nice.
And something that I noticed that I was like, I don't know if I like this, is that it became a bubble of city people in the country where, like, it was less like, I don't know, it was like, it's like if you move somewhere, I think it's important to, like, know what's going on there, to make an effort to be a part of that community, to, like, be aware of your surroundings instead of just kind of like, okay, well, this is the way I do it, and it's the way I'm going to keep doing it. And I'm just, like, you're a part of a community. And I think it's important to, like, be a part of that community, even if it's hard. And I think it's, like, just expanding what you think, how to word this.
I think, it's interesting because to me, I see a direct link of city living is gentrification. It's people moving into a neighborhood and being like, I can't have the, like, crappy $2 coffee that the brown person makes for me. No. I want the $8 coffee that Starbucks made for me. And so therefore that's what I have to have. Or, like, I can't eat the Caribbean restaurant that's been here for 20 years. No. I want the, like, arugula and kale salad with scapes and ramps, and I don't know what any of those things are, but I'm just naming them all the things that I haven't eaten. Those are the things that I just named. But, like, so it's kind of the same thing, right? You're like, it would be like people moving from the city and being like, okay, well, no, we're just going to do the same thing without even trying to, like, incorporate what's around me into the landscape, into your life.
Yeah.
It's almost saying, like, it's different cultures, different ways of being, and kind of needing in some ways to kind of adapt or to adjust. And if you don't, then you're almost missing out a little bit, and whether I think you're moving to the countryside or to the city, really asking yourself the question as to why am I doing this? Is it more because there's a trend of this happening? Or is this really that I'm looking for something that maybe I don't really have, but knowing that you're going to gain certain things, but other things you may also lose or no longer have or may no longer be accessible. So it's knowing, like, what are you willing to kind of hold on to? What are you willing to let go? And what are you willing to kind of integrate that maybe you didn't have before? So it's really kind of, why are you making that move? And what are you looking for? So I think I would ask those questions, because I noticed in my neighborhood since the pandemic started, a lot of houses went up for sale and individuals that were buying were coming from the big city.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what's going to happen post-pandemic. Are they going to stay, or are they going to maybe leave? And that's tough too, because it changes the neighborhood every time people come in and come out as well, right? Yeah. So it's super fascinating and interesting.
So this person has great questions for us. So thank you for asking, and there's a lot of good comments here. So this is a good question, and this is something that. Anyways, I have a lot of insight about this too. So I get that a lot too. The city folk, especially Anglo, were not welcome in the first place. How do you create that bridge? So how do you make that tie to people when you're, like, used to living a certain way in the city and you go out to the country, it's a whole different way of living. How do you change? Like, how do you adapt? I don't want to say assimilate, because I feel like there's a lot of negative connotations to assimilation and integration, but there's ways that you can, like, adopt. I guess assimilation and integration is the way, without losing your own sense of identity, but still, like, being a part of the community that you're in. So how do you create that bridge? Do either of you have any, like, helpful hints or tips?
Connect. I think that's the biggest thing, is make the effort to connect and just to say hello. I noticed that, and again, I noticed, when I go to the grocery store, and this is super wrong of me to say, but I notice that someone is from the city because they won't make eye contact or say hello. But when I know someone's from the area, they will. So even that just small smile or hello, just that warmness it makes such a huge difference, because often I find there's just that coldness. So just kind of making a little bit more of that. Yeah, I think that's part of it too. And then just kind of and I think Benny was talking about like kind of like integrating and kind of knowing that you're coming into a community, so kind of learning about the community, but at the same time you get to share things too. Yeah. So once that door is open, you can share, and it's like more of this back and forth. Yeah. But if the wall is always up, it makes it so difficult to connect with people. And I do find that people coming from the city, it is harder to connect with them. Not that I don't want to, it's just the door's not open. Yeah. It feels that way. That way.
Benny, what do you
I mean, it makes me think, because like I have a lot of anxiety with small talk in French, just because I find it so hard. Like in English, I'm like, okay, let's go. Like I can make jokes and like have a personality. Whereas like in French, like I feel like I don't have a personality. I feel like I am this like cold person, and especially like just with anxiety already, it makes it so much worse. So like something that I've had a really hard time with is going to the corner store and trying to, number one, just understand when they're making small talk, what they're saying. And then when I got to that point, I was like, okay, I'm going to like think of funny things I can say back to try to like connect with this person. But it's super hard because I'll say something and then they won't understand me because of my accent. That it's like, it could be really tricky to like, I don't know, especially with like anxiety, is like to make that small talk and to be friendly and to be open and inviting, that like I want to, but like there are like certain barriers sometimes, especially like language barriers will always be hard. And like I'm sure that's really hard too, because like the area that I live is like super farming area, and so like it's like a big thing where a lot of like immigrants come in the summertime. And they come as like helpers on the farm, and I can only imagine like how isolating that can be to like, you know, go grocery shopping, and like if you don't speak fluent English or fluent French, you know, of like how isolating that is, and how, you know, a lot of times I hear people from the country talking about those people negatively just because they're just workers, you know, they're temporary, and it's like they don't have a choice, you know. A lot of times they don't have a choice. They have to do this. They have to do it.
It's a job. Someone's got to do it.
Yeah. A lot of times, yeah, and it might be your only option for a job that really like pays the bills, you know. So it's like, I just like imagine them in that situation, and just like, I understand if you're not from there, it's really hard, and like I think too, like depending on who you are, if you're a person of color, if you're like a outwardly like gay person, like the way that you're treated by those people in a small town is very different too, because I'm like, at least where I am, it's more socially acceptable to just like treat them like crap and like not accept them and not welcome them or make small talk with them, you know. Like I've heard like LGBT farmers out here, and you know, like they'll go into small corner stores and they'll say, sorry, like your kind's not welcome here. And it's like, you know, in the city, like I tell people that in the city, and they're like, oh my god, but it's like 2021. And it's like, but like, you know, like
different
when
realities.
You're isolated, when you're isolated, or if it's a farming town where you're working all the time, you're not always up to date on what the news is, what the latest like trends are, whatever is like happening in the world is like, you know.
I think a lot of that also has to do with exposure, right? So like when you're in the city, you're exposed to a lot of different things, be that minority communities, different people from like the LGBTQ community, like there's just like there's more people around. And so what I have found personally, like I went to, like I've lived on like this cusp, I guess, for a lot of my life, with like hanging out with country folk and hanging out with city folk and trying like, and seeing where they like would butt heads. And somehow I managed to like span that divide and that bridge, I guess, because I was like not afraid to like put myself out there, which is also hard to do, but also like I can take ribbing, like people give me a hard time and I'm just like, yeah, okay, whatever, like come on, let's go. Like, let's keep going with our, like, we can still be friends once you get over this tough guy give me a hard time thing. Because it's a different kind of, like, introduction of people. And so, like, I feel like a lot of the time, what in my experience of people who, like, live in the country, if they have, like, a family member or they have a close friend who's like a minority or like one of these, like a member of the LGBTQ community, they seem to be more open to it, and it's because they've been exposed to it. And so when you don't have that exposure, everyone, and we all, no one can deny this, we're all afraid of what we don't know. And so that's what it is that you don't know. And I think you bring a good point, Benny and Jen. I don't know if Jen said it or not, but, like, I think it was Benny who said it. Like, you have migrant workers coming in, and so they're coming and then they're going back home to their thing, to their home. And so this isn't their home. And so when this is your home and you have these people coming and going, it's that transientness of the same thing that happens in the city. You have all these transientness of people coming and going, and so you don't make those ties with them, because why are you going to invest time with someone when they're just going to leave? And so I think maybe that bridge that we're talking about could be time too. Sometimes it just takes time. Someone seeing you at the corner store for the next 6 months, 7 months, letting you see you go through a winter in the country is going to be like, oh, okay, they're here to stay. And so this is how you can, like, try to make that tie, and, like, talking about the mundane stuff, and, like, and you said it, Jen, really well about getting out of your comfort zone. Like, there's things that are acceptable in the country that are not acceptable in the city. Like, I mean, and I said it earlier, right? Like, I grew up shooting guns in the country. That's a thing that happens. It's a normal thing. It's a thing that people go hunting, and so you have to practice shooting because you're going to go hunting. And so, like, practicing shooting is a hobby. It's an activity. People go and they get in their car and they drive somewhere to a field and they go shooting guns. And that's, like, it's not seen the same way in the city as it is in the country, because this is a tool in the country, and in the city that's not a tool. And so this is, like, it's about changing the way we see things and how we adapt to, like, that's my city boy interpretation of, like,
But I totally agree with that, and I would almost say that the bridge is, whether you're from the country or from the city, that to let that guard down we were talking about earlier, but also maybe leave behind some of the stereotypes that we have, and just from a human to human perspective, just that fresh start, and just get the conversation started and take it from there, as opposed to saying you're from the city, you're from the country, and kind of that divide. I know that's easier said than done, but it would be amazing if we could just let that go and kind of just start from fresh, and have more of that, hey, you know, my name is Jen, you're Tony and Benny, let's just chat and get to know each other and take it from there. It doesn't matter where we're from.
I think that's what you're saying is, like, putting yourself out there, and that's the hard part. It's so hard to be like, all right, because you're making yourself vulnerable. And it's hard to do that. And, like, especially if you're an introvert. Like,
I was about to say, I'm so thankful for extroverts for being, like, freaky so proudly that, like, I only could dream of, like, doing that, honestly.
Like,
Thank you.
I have no qualms walking up to someone and being like, hi, I'm Tony, what's your name? And they're like, what? You know, and but then you're gonna have to accept that there are gonna be some people who are just, they don't want to talk to you, and it's harder when that pool is smaller. If someone, it feels like a direct, like, it's a direct attack on you when someone's just like, I don't want to talk to you, but they don't want to, like, they don't have to. That's something too you have to realize, like, well, you know, people aren't obliged to talk to you. That's, like, it's also part of it. So this time has, like, flown by. I had, like, a whole list of things I wanted to talk about, and we covered, like, half of it. And some of them are really juicy, but maybe we'll have to do this again. Do you guys have any, like, parting words? Any last things you gotta say? Maybe I'll let Benny go first, and then Jen, so you can kind of push mental health history at the end too.
Yes.
So, Benny, what do you got? What are your, like, parting words here?
I think something that is so important that no matter if you live in the city or the country is if you can have support and like an advocate for yourself if you're struggling with mental health issues is like it's so hard to do that on your own when you're struggling. So if you can like get a support network that you can lean on a little bit or like a parent like to push to get those resources, do it. Like push as hard as you can forever and don't burn yourself out, but like yeah, I don't know.
I think that's great advice,
really
and
important.
it
Yeah.
spans the country-city divide too. Establishing a good network of friends and family to help support you is incredibly important.
Yeah.
Jen.
Yes. Well, before I talk about mental health history quickly,
Yeah.
Benny, I did want to say, from an introvert to an introvert, it was really nice to connect with you tonight. It was a pleasure, Tony, as well. And yes, I was told to let everyone know that mental health history is open and available. We are working remotely, but we're available by phone. We have our Facebook page, which we post a lot of interesting articles and guides. We also have our support groups that are available. So if ever you're interested to learn more about our services, please, please, please call or email us. Chances are you're going to land on me. So you already have seen my face, heard me, so I'm
That's
not
perfect.
too much of a stranger. And the only thing I will say is if you've been finding yourself isolated, not quite sure what to do, not quite sure what your steps are, pick up the phone, give us a call, and just say, hey, I need some help, or hey, can you help me get started? And we're right there with you.
Awesome. So I have no fantastic parting words. I just want to say thank you so much to Benny and Jen for joining me tonight. This was a really, really fun and interesting conversation. And like next time we'll have to do it like outside around a fire with beverages, because that's like that's the kind of thing that you do in the country.
Yes.
So with the cows.
With the cows. Or like with the bed of the pickup truck down, like the gate down, and like you got your cooler there, and then you just like hang out
the
for
bonfire.
a bit. Yeah, exactly. So this is what I envision of like connecting and making community in the country looks like. And hopefully people can do that in the city too. There are still places to have fires in the city. Just don't let the cops find you. So I didn't say that. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Benny. And I put up Mental Health History's website, and maybe later I'll put up their Facebook too if I can find it. I'm sure I can find it. I will put it up in the comments. If not tonight, I'll put it up tomorrow morning, first thing in the morning.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for asking those really fantastic questions and participating, and we will see you next time. You can see what events we have going on our calendar, and that includes all of our Facebook Live events. I can't remember off the top of my head what the next one is. I do believe it's calming techniques, and that's what we're going to be talking about. So like I don't even know what we're going to be talking about because I'm not the expert, so I am not an expert at being calm, so we're gonna talk about that later. Again, thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you next time.